There's 2.5 billion pallets circulating in the United States. All right.
Wow.
So if I stack those pallets up on top of each other, it would literally reach the moon. The stack of pallets would. What I started doing is realizing, wait, these same businesses that buy pallets from me, they also need 55-gallon metal drums. They need crates. They need corrugated boxes, lightly used, cardboard boxes, lightly used. They need Gaylord boxes. They need industrial bags. They need dunnage, which is a 4x4 by 8 foot piece of lumber to prop really long stuff up on trucks. So all these stuff are things that they need to ship their stuff out. And fortunately, most of them, think about boxes. Well, they're going on pallets, right? And I have, so for the next many years, I just tried to figure out, how do I simplify this model? How do I move all the different varieties? How would I get exclusivities for this supply where no one else can get it and only me? How do I get away from the 4840? All these different questions I needed answers for on a daily basis. I just devoted myself to solve those problems. Inside a warehouse of a buyer, there are 100 different things going on that are causing issues for that buyer, whether it be for efficiency, whether it be space, whether it be safety, flow issues, and my job is to be a consultant for them and help create solutions.
Welcome, John, to the Side Hustle Oracle podcast. I'm very excited to have this conversation with you today because I know you're very knowledgeable within the job that you're doing, which is also, in my opinion, a perfect side hustle for people. So, yeah, welcome to the show, John.
Hey, I'm very happy to be here and share what I got going on with everybody. It's a little bit out of left field, but hopefully a lot of you, the folks listening to this, that maybe have never heard about it, but we'll get into it in detail and have fun in the process.
For sure. Yeah. To jump off, for anyone who might have just clicked on this podcast, who are you and what value will they gain today, and why should they be listening to our conversation?
Absolutely. My name is John Wilker. I am the owner of a LLC called the Simplest Biz, which is a training program that I developed for people about the pallet recycling business, which doesn't sound very sexy when you hear it. But I discovered this back in 1998. I've been running a business that's been very profitable and given me tons and tons of free time and money freedom as well. And now I also teach people how to set it up so they can get away with what I've been getting away with all these years. And I've taught a lot of people, and I'm just here to kind of expose you to this business model today. And Francesca is going to ask me some questions so we can kind of dig deep and help you understand why I was so attracted to it back in 98 all the way up to this 25 years later, still executing the business. So that's what I do. And when I first put this training together about it, I said, who is going to get this? Because it was my little secret, right? That I had been executing in a different way than most people have done this. And lo and behold, now I have students in 14 different countries doing what I've been doing for all these years. So that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think it's going to be very, very interesting. And yeah, for the people that are listening within the pallet business, from what I could find out is basically that you are like an intermediary between companies that are using and need pallets. So you are not creating the pallets and then selling them, but you are more of an intermediary. Do I understand it correctly?
That is absolutely correct. So I do not build pallets. I don't lift them. I don't store them. I don't even sort them. I have a situation where half the businesses out there, out of the millions, are generating pallets as a byproduct of their business. Their inventory comes in, they take it off, they sell it via email, through the mail, or directly to the public. But all that inventory was on a pallet. So they have no need for it at this point. So they have truckload after truckload, and stacks and stacks and stacks are generated on a daily basis from that half of the business. But then there's a whole other half of the businesses that got to ship their stuff out week after week, day after day by the truckload. And they're needing those pallets. So I'm the intermediary
Mm-hmm.
that's moving those pallets, which I haven't even mentioned yet. We get 95% of them for free, right?
Yeah,
So
that's
the
fantastic.
overhead's
Wow.
low, and I'm going directly from that supplier. They're loading them on my little flatbed truck. I have a real old one that didn't cost hardly anything, and I'm moving them literally about 3 blocks down the road, half a mile, maybe a mile at the most, um, to the business that needs them, and they're unloading the pallets, and I'm writing out an invoice, and I am the Uber driver basically for 150 pallets at any given time, and it takes me about 35 minutes from driving in to dropping them off, and
Mm-hmm.
repeating that process over and over again.
That it's super interesting. The first question that comes to mind for me is like, what is the pain point that you're solving there? I mean, obviously for the people that need the pallets, that's totally
Mm-hmm.
clear. But why, for example, are those companies that are storing those pallets, why are they selling them? Why are they even storing it? Why are they not, for example, jumping in that themselves if there
Okay,
is
good
a
question.
business? Yeah, so where is the pain point from those people? Why are they giving that away?
Well, the few things that I figured out as well. So there are pallet yards that buy one style of pallet. Okay, but a lot of these
Mm-hmm.
businesses, millions of them, are generating all different styles, sizes, configurations of pallets. And I'm solving the pain point of before I come along, they have all these stacks sitting on their yard or in their warehouse, and they're having to come in on a Saturday with and pay their employees overtime and load up a box truck, which isn't very efficient, and take it to the dump and incur those costs, or they have to rent a tray a dumpster, and they're throwing these pallets into a dumpster because they have no need for them anymore. But that's not very efficient because when you just throw them into a dumpster, there's a lot of air in there, they're all just cockeyed in there, so you can't
Yeah.
get that many, and they're having to incur the cost of having to pay for that dumpster and have it dumped 3 times a week or 2 times a week to because of the amount of byproduct, which is the pallets that come into play. So I solved that problem for them. I lost you on video
Interesting.
for a second.
Yeah, I unfortunately can't see you right now as well, but hopefully it's coming back.
That's
And
okay.
otherwise, I think this will still be interesting enough.
Sure.
Um, so the thought that I have right now is basically the reason why pallet flipping can be a thing, because the cost for the company that
Mm-hmm.
otherwise would store it or would need to get rid of it or basically get into the business themselves of selling
Mm-hmm.
it, it's too high of a effort for them, or it doesn't come out profitably because of the salary, I guess, that they are paying their employees. And so that's where then it becomes
It's a
useful
burden
for
for
you, or that's why they want to
right.
work with you.
It's a burden for them. And plus, well, people say, well, why don't they sell the pallets to another business? They're in the business of
Yeah.
just keeping up. The suppliers that I deal with are just trying to keep up with the orders that are coming in and getting their trucks, or selling directly to the public. They're not in the pallet game. When they see the
Mm-hmm.
pallet stacking up, they're going, oh gosh, I have to come in and miss the football game on Saturday to get rid of these things so we can make more room so we don't have a fire hazard sitting next to our building or a rat infestation that could take place if you just leave them there, and it's unsightly. So that's where I come into play. And when I first discovered this back in 1998, what really grabbed me were a few statistics that you folks might want to understand. One, like I said, I'm getting 95% of them for free, and sometimes they're paying me to take those pallets away, and I'm selling them as well to a business down the road that I secured and on a recurring basis. But the statistics that people need to understand, and we'll cover this right out of the gate, I think it's important, is there's 2.5 billion pallets circulating in the United States. All right.
Well.
So if I stack those pallets up on top of each other, it would literally reach the moon. The stack of pallets would. Or
Yeah,
if I
that's
lined
that's
them
a
up
really
like a
crazy
path,
thought.
yeah, if I lined them up those 2.5 in a path and next to each other, it would circle the earth 76 times. I did the math a few weeks ago on this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something invisible that nobody pays attention to, but it's the one thing on the planet that makes everything else move. And if it didn't exist, we probably all would die, because medicines and food and all types of
Yeah.
necessities for human beings are moved on these pallets. So 85% of all commerce is moved on a pallet at some point in its life cycle. And I like the fact that it was under the radar and nobody paid attention to it because it doesn't look sexy. But they say the riches are in the niches, right? And I just found this to be such a necessity product that is not visible really to the normal population, but it's so massive that you can't ignore it.
Mm-hmm. And what is the difference between the suppliers that are getting those pallets so they get it new from someone who's manufacturing it? And then like how were you able to find the suppliers that are okay with basically then getting them used, right? Because they were already used before. So what is something that people need to pay
Sure.
attention to in order to find those connections?
Great. So, there's a difference between, there's certain situations when somebody needs a custom built pallet with being new. And some of those are configuration of their shelving where they need a certain size for when they get their inventory and they want to put it on a pallet, it fits on their shelving in a certain way and and they maximize the use of the shelving. So that's item one where they would need new. Item two where they would need new and heat treated pallets as well, meaning if they want to ship something out of the country, the wood that it's built with has to be considered heat treated. It has a stamp on it that says HT, heat treated lumber. So it's killed all any bugs or anything that's in the wood. So we don't ship those bugs over to a different country. So in those scenarios, they want new pallets. Now, I don't build pallets, right?
Yeah.
But I am able, there's a whole other area to this business where I broker pallets and I have another business build them and do all the grunt work basically. And I'm getting a cut of the action because I'm, again, the middleman that's precipitated this deal. So every time they're ordering new pallets, they're going through me as the intermediary as well, where I've really done the research and helped that business out in a way where they're getting a better price and better terms and that type of thing. So those are the situations with new pallets. The used pallets, when you're a business and you're shipping, like I have I'm a electrical supplier or whatever. And I have 6 trucks coming in today that I have to load up with my inventory and ship them out. Well, I need a low cost method for that to take place. I don't need a brand new pallet. I need a used pallet, lightly used, perfectly in good shape. There's about a 5-year lifespan for a pallet, where it's being used, repaired, and just used again and again. Well, I'm never going to, if I'm that business and I'm shipping them out on a truck, I'm never going to see them again, right?
Yeah.
Because they're going off to, across the country, across the Southeast or wherever part of the country you are, or even out of the country in some scenarios. So they want to use me as the supplier of that pallet because I'm providing them a low cost method on an item that they're going to use once, run out of, and need again. And when I say low cost, the average pallet of the cost of a pallet, $7 to $12 is the median range. And then out west, it's more like $9 to $17, depending what part of the country you're in. So per pallet, that's a pretty nice profit, especially when you're getting about 95% of them for free.
Super interesting. And in regards to finding so I understand the one part with, okay, there were companies now that needed new pallets, and so they just have it standing around and it's too expensive for them to take care of it. So that part totally makes sense. For the part of the people that are also okay with having used pallets, are those production facilities that you are searching, or is it companies that you're approaching and being like, hey, how are you shipping your products at the moment? There could be some cost savings if you use reused ones. Also, obviously, there's a sustainability factor, right? Saving waste and all of that. So what are those types of suppliers that you are then approaching? So what is possible there?
Well, I'll give you a little insight. In the training that I have an online training course as well. So I provide a massive list of suppliers and buyers in that training. But not
Yeah.
just that, what to say, how to set the deals up. I have to walk you through a ton of scenarios so you know how to handle each given situation. So I spent like 6 months out in the field with that. But that being said, the types, I'll give you a few examples. You have distribution companies that are moving goods from point A to point B. So they're in need of pallets, but you also have manufacturing type. I'll give you an example of one, like a bolt and screw company, right? A manufacturer. They are creating huge bolts and screws for railroads or this, that, and the other. So when they produce that item, they got the raw material on like possibly really, the long rods that they're breaking down into smaller screws and bolts. Well, they got it on these 12-foot pallets. But when they break those down into either boxes or, 1 foot size bolts, well, now they need smaller pallets to be able to ship the individual orders that they've created out the door and across the country. Well, that's where I come in. Now, in addition, though, they don't need those 12-foot pallets anymore that those long rods came in. So they're giving those to me because they're also a buyer and a supplier now. And I have a customer down the road that needs 12-foot stuff because they're creating 12-foot long items that need to go on that pallet. So it's a lot of different companies you would not even heard of or thought of as well. Plastic injection molding companies, it's these heavy industry type businesses and that we deal with. And especially when I do what's called a mixed load, where I'm not even having to sort and I'm getting a whole different variety of sizes and styles. There's certain types of businesses that I guide you to in the training that they need all the different styles and they pick and choose which ones they need out of that mix without, mixed stacks of stuff I've given them, depending on what they're shipping out in that particular shipment. And then the next thing they're creating is a whole different size and they need a larger or heavy duty type item. So we get into that in detail as well, which benefits us as a business person because when you can solve a problem, before I came along as an example, they only knew about one size pallet. It's called the standard 4840 pallet.
Yeah.
You see them beside grocery stores and that kind of thing. That's what all the pallet yards exclusively really just deal with.
Yeah.
So they got one solution for every, I'm trying to put a round peg in a square hole kind of deal. But when I come along, I'm able to create other types of solutions for these businesses at a lower cost and a better way of them operating by giving them that variety. And it creates a necessity where they like me better, right? And they're going to use me for the next decade on a recurring basis to supply them with their pallets. And so you have this constant recharging of the supply from the suppliers because their trucks are always coming in, the stacks are getting bigger. And on the buyer side, they're sending those trucks out with their inventory, their stacks are going down. So it's this constant reoccurring flow of pallets, which is wonderful.
No, for sure. And specifically, so you mentioned before the sentence, the riches is in the niches. Completely agreed. And also specifically, since it is such a big market and you just shared that there are like multiple different pallets, what are some niches that have come up maybe also now within the last few years where you're like, okay, these are some kind of products that people that's maybe growing or that are types where companies can really save money, and that's where then it would make, and there are not that many people yet offering those kinds of pallets or like resupplying those kinds of pallets. What are those kinds of niches, if they even exist, that have come up?
Let me go one up higher than that when what you're asking, because it gets even I'll give you a little background. In 2007, all I was from 1998 to 2007, I was dealing in just pallets, right? Different sizes. And I was kind of limited, I wasn't doing I wasn't doing like 12 footers back then. But after the downturn in 2007, one of my customers went out of business. And I said, well, I need to up my game as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. I need to figure out, I not have all my eggs in one basket. And this kind of plays into what you're asking. What I started doing is realizing, wait, these same businesses that buy pallets from me, they also need 55-gallon metal drums. They need crates. They need corrugated boxes, lightly used, cardboard
Mm-hmm.
boxes, lightly used. They need Gaylord boxes. They need industrial bags. They need dunnage, which is a 4x4 by 8 foot piece of lumber to prop really long stuff up on trucks. So all these stuff are things that they need to ship their stuff out. And fortunately, most of them, think about boxes. Well, they're going on pallets, right? And I had to source out all these other items that come into play with these businesses as well. So I diversified my offerings, and the spinoff effect ended up being now I'm attached to this one business buying pallets for me, 55-gallon drums and crates. And the other one's buying pallets like they were before, but they're also buying corrugated boxes and Gaylord boxes. So now I'm
Mm-hmm.
tethered to them in 3 different ways as a one-stop shop. And it exploded my business as far as being able not to have to actually get new customers, just expanding the customers that I already had and having to source out those items. So, I teach people that method as well. If you had 3 customers ordering 3 different items, right, each on a recurring basis, that really equals 9 revenue streams reoccurring on a weekly basis. It's like having
Mm-hmm.
9 accounts for a single product. So it doesn't take a mountain of accounts to make this particular business model work. If you just do the math, So that's how I offer different styles and even plastic pallets for some situations. But the wooden pallet is probably the best answer, and it doesn't matter in a lot of cases whether it's a wood with, I don't want to get nerdy on you, but there's a wood runner, or if it's considered a block pallet or a 4-way where it can you get it from the side and front
Yeah.
on the forklift. And sometimes it doesn't matter which configuration it is, as long as they can get their product on it and ship it out.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing fine, right, at a lower cost.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. And speaking of the experience, and also you just mentioned your first 10 years basically within that
Mhm.
business, what would you say was your like outlier situation? What kind of experience had you made before 98 that made you realize, okay, there is something here, and that's why I'm starting this now,
Uh-huh.
and that's why this makes sense.
Okay. Well, it's kind of a out of left field the way it came about, but I'll give you a little background. At one point in my life, in my 20s, I worked for a family business, and they were tyrants. I mean, they were awful people, and they treated their people horribly. I was making good money though, but at the same time, I said to myself and friends I was dealing with at the time, I said, I don't want to work for anybody else, because it was too painful the way that, they abused not only me, but other people that I worked with. And it was quite depressing. And I said, I need to find a vehicle to where I can do something on my own. And I want to keep it. I said, I don't even care if I sell hot dogs and buy them for 25 cents and sell them at
Yeah.
$3 and have a little stand and keep life simple. Right. Well, I never did the hot dog thing, but I went into my own business after that and had remodeling but there's a lot of moving parts to remodeling. A lot of things can go wrong with remodeling, and they did. But I was making a living, and I wasn't working for somebody else, so that was a benefit in that aspect. But I hadn't found my quote unquote hot dog stand yet until I stumbled on the pallet business, and they were basically my hot dogs, but even better, I was getting them for free and
Yeah.
moving them to a business that needed them. So all those pain points of having to work with somebody else, for somebody else, and not being able to do it myself, but not having the right vehicle, it took me a while to find this and figure it out as well. It took me years and years to figure it out. But when you do not want to go into to work for somebody else, you will figure something else out if you're motivated enough to do it, because I'd rather work 60 hours a week for myself than 40 hours a week for a tyrant, right?
Yeah.
So those were the motivational factors that are the hinge points in my life where I really was looking for a simple, low overhead, straightforward, tangible business. And this was it. When I found it, I knew I wasn't going to let go.
So you were, yeah, so you were out looking, and then did did you have maybe a friend or someone who was then within those manufacturing sites and was like, hey, John, there's so much stuff standing around. I think you can make something out of this. Or like, what was the moment where then you came across this?
Well, I was doing remodeling, and I had a business partner. His name was Dane. Excuse me. Sorry about that.
No
And
worries.
we had a job. We went up to a job one morning in December back in 98, and there was a note on the door saying they had gone out of town, emergency, family emergency, or whatever. I'm going, oh crap. Well, it was a bathroom and remodel. So now we don't have any work for the rest of the week. So I get back in the truck, and I'll never forget it. I turned to Dane and said, well, what do you want to do? And he says, well, let's go pick up some pallets. I go, what's a pallet? And he goes, those wooden things they move. And I said, well, what are we going to do with them? And back then, we didn't know. I didn't know any better. He didn't know any better. And we sold them to pallet yards. But the first place we went to literally had like 2,000 pallets of one size. Mm-hmm. And we stumbled through the process, almost screwed it all up. But in the end, we ended up getting those pallets for free. Back then, I didn't know any better. I was hand lifting them on my truck and trailer and all, and moving them to a pallet yard. And they were just giving us like $2 a piece, right? But still, 2,000 pallets was $4,000. It made up for the business. So when the next place, it had like 1,500 pallets a couple of days later. And we take them to the pallet yard, and this is what scavengers do now. Believe me, I'm not doing pallet yards at this point. But I kept on going to that pallet yards, and the pallets we'd taken the day before were gone. And I'm going, wait a minute, who are they selling to? I said, Dane, we got to figure this out. We got to figure out who they're, the type of business that they're selling to. Meet me here in the morning, and we're going to get off and figure this out no matter what it takes. Well, he doesn't show up, and I can't get a hold of him. And come to find out, he was running around with this cute girl, and he was infatuated with her, and he had run off with her. I don't know where they went. And for the next 10 years, I did not hear from Dane. So I'm sitting here with this new concept going, now I got to figure it out all by myself. And that's what I did. So for the next many years, I just tried to figure out, how do I simplify this model? How do I move all the different varieties? How would I get exclusivities for this supply where no one else can get it and only me? How do I get away from the 4840? All these different questions I needed answers for, and on a daily basis, I just devoted myself to solve those problems to where it ended up becoming just a well-oiled machine in the end, where I'm just recycling and being an Uber driver, moving pallets from one side to the other, and becoming a broker for the pallets, and then diversifying to all the other products as well. So it's been a labor of love. But that's how it all started.
Super interesting story.
I didn't know a thing about him before he said that.
Yeah. That's super interesting. And in regard actually to getting those pallets and also selling those pallets. So right within selling, the most important is that you can find out how can I serve their needs best, and also with that show that I am able to serve their needs and that they can trust me that it's getting done. So what are maybe some questions that people can ask those kinds of businesses in order to find out, hey, are they open to this? Is there a possibility here? And maybe what are they unsatisfied with the people that are managing their pallets right now, so that I can get that exclusivity, for example? Are there like some kind of questions?
Well, you're getting a little proprietary for the training, but I'm going to go over an example.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I'll give you an example of what can take place.
Yeah.
Inside a warehouse of a buyer, there are 100 different things going on that are causing issues for that buyer, whether it be for efficiency, whether it be, space, whether it be safety, flow issues. And my job is to be a consultant for them and help create solutions, not just, hey, I have pallets, you need pallets, right? It's more of, let's look at the whole operation here and see what's going on and see how I can solve some issues that are sticking points in your operation, and become a consultant for that buyer and guide them along the way with better solutions that they're currently doing. So an example, if I come into a warehouse and I see tons of shelving and they're not maximizing their shelving, right? Let's say on every 500 or 1,000 shelves that they have, they're putting 3 items up on that shelf, but they have an extra space of like 40 inches or 39 inches that they're not using. And then they have all this inventory on the floor because they're not maximizing the shelving space, right? Well, in my mind, wait a minute. I have sourced out some 36-inch international paper pallets by the hundreds and hundreds at a business down the road that I hadn't found a home for yet, right? Well, here's a situation where this particular warehouse is clogging up their flow issue because they got all this inventory on the floor that they could have on their shelving. And now I come in as a solution for that. Hey, what if I had a 36-inch pallet that could fit in every one of your shelves on here and get like 50 to 80% of this stuff off the floor? So now your guys can zip around this warehouse and fulfill the orders faster. Would that be of help to you? Oh, you really? I didn't know there was another pallet inside the 4840 out there. You can do that? Yes. So there's an example of just one of the many, many things that we can now operate under as far as a knowledge base to help the businesses out. Because 90% of the guys out there, as far as competition, they are the guy that's a scavenger who doesn't make this a business. He hasn't bathed in 3 days. He's probably got, I don't want to get disparage him too much, but they don't run it like a business and they're serious, and they haven't studied the industry to where they can even come close to consulting them in a manner that we're doing. So that's a huge part of it. And then tethering yourself to them in a multiple different ways where you're the one-stop shop for these businesses and they can't operate without you.
Also then with, I guess, the different products where that you can then also find that they're needed and all that. So in regards to skills then, since you also just mentioned a consulting side, so the big understanding that you need to create in order for this pallet flipping to be successful, is it how supply chains work, how operations work, like, or also what are the kind of characteristics that are needed in order to be a successful pallet flipper? Like, I don't know, is the pain so big on those warehouse sites that you need to be a very empathetic person? Like, what is the realms around who fits into that kind of business?
Anybody. I have such a wide variety of individuals: women, men, young, old, white collar, blue collar, insurance agents, to truck drivers, to nurses, to ex-lawyers, people that are burned out in their profession and they want something more tangible, real, give them some time freedom, because it doesn't take long to move 300 pallets in a morning. You start at 7 and have 3 loads of 100 done before 9:30 in the morning. And if you're getting them for free and, 300 pallets times $10 a piece is a $3,000 get on a Monday morning, right? So you have that attractiveness as far as the money freedom to free people up. The type of skill set you do need to be able to communicate, right? You cannot, because we will be talking to people, even though we are talking to blue collar, which is nice, salt of the earth, hardworking people, and it's really a normal conversation, but you need to know the questions to ask to really dig deep into their business. I supply a punch list of people can cheat in the training to know which questions to ask and the things that you need to notice. I walk you through a ton of different scenarios, and I'm noticing all these different issues about any given situation out in the field. So when somebody takes the training, they're able to see those issues as well. So when they come upon it, they know exactly what the pain points that they're going to be asking about for that business that they know a solution for. So being able to notice that and how to communicate those questions and having a way of offering a solution to these businesses that never have really been consulted before because of the nature of the unprofessionalism in the niche really is it's a lower bar, but you got to know your stuff. I call it the simplest biz. The simple part's just moving stuff to point A to point B. You got to know your situations and know how to solve the situations before you just run out here and try to be the guy, say, hey, I got pallets, you need pallets. And if you know that type of stuff, you can secure these accounts like nobody else.
And let's take, for example, what you just mentioned with the 300 pallets in the morning. Like, how long would you say, or maybe what is also your average on until you can close those kinds of deals? Like, how much goes into researching, how much time goes into finding those places, how much time goes into convincing those places. What is like a
Great
time
question.
commitment that you would say?
Yes. So in the training, I show you a way of scout. We call it scouting, and we give you, the massive list of the types of
Mm-hmm.
businesses we're dealing with. So we're not just meandering out there and hunt. We can really focus on the right businesses that make this work. But then I teach you ways of doing it from home as far as scouting, ways of using the internet to be able to scout and know exactly what's going on at these businesses, whether they be a supplier or a buyer. So we're able to tag these businesses as well based on the
Mm-hmm.
list and that type of thing. So when we walk out the door, or someone walks out the door on day one, we have a list of 100 or 200, 300, depending, possibilities out there, and we can literally hit 20 or 30 businesses per day out of the gate if you hustle. Now, some people's form of hustle see that I saw 3 businesses a day. Well, yeah, you can get there doing that, but it's just why not see as many as possible and get out of the gate? You're starting at zero, right? So
Yeah.
I have students that have gone out and really hustled and hit a ton of businesses that we guide them to, and on day one, and they're flipping pallets on day two.
Well,
But
okay.
the issue, yes, so there's an issue with having, you want as many possibilities as possible, and the way this works is you're going to get some out of the gate if you hustle in the first couple days, 2 days or 3 days, and then you're going to have some that, well, yeah, I like what you're saying, but I just ordered, and can I get you on my next order next week? So you got a 7-day lag time on some of the businesses. Some of them, you don't get them until you run by their business with your wares on your truck, maybe on the way to another business, and they see, okay, this guy's legit, right? Because they
Yeah.
have those
The trust and all that.
unprofessional people out there, and sometimes they're going to throw you in
Yeah.
that bucket right away until you overcome that. So a lot of the business starts coming in, stacking upon itself as you keep working it. I made it a game, and when I first started, I had a business on this side of town and had to travel 5 miles to this side of town to deliver them. Well, wait, can I find a business on this side of town that supplies them and several other
Mm-hmm.
customers over here? So on Monday, I can just work this side of town and bounce around in a 5-block radius and be done with my day. And then over here where that supply was, can I find a buyer and 3 other suppliers and a buyer in this half-mile radius and bounce around out here on Tuesdays? So I became a game to where how fast can I get this done and get onto the golf course and play golf before 9 o'clock, and my wife doesn't know it. So, so that's how the longer you do it, the easier it becomes, because you're exposed to your opportunities are widening just like any other business, but you're trying to become more and more and more and more efficient. Where I got it
Yep.
down to 35 minutes. Pick up, get in my truck, drive to my first supplier, 300 yards down the road from where my truck's parked. Load it up, takes 12 minutes. Drive time, 2.5 minutes, 5 blocks down the road. Unload 10 minutes, write out the invoice, repeat, and be done. And pull in $1,500, $1,200, $2,000 in by 9 o'clock or
Mm-hmm.
8:30 or whatever, depending what my tea time was. So that's the kind of lifestyle I was after. And I feel like I just cheated the system, because I'm not trading time for money. I'm trading units for money. And how many fast can I move these units? And how
Of
can I layer
course.
brokering on top and then the other items on top of it? So I never have all my eggs in one basket.
Super interesting. And the last few times when you talked about it, you mentioned the mornings very often. So is it important for a person to be available in the morning, or like, let's say you have a full-time job right now, can you start it on the side? Like, if you do have that full-time job and you maybe are not able to spend those 10
Great
hours at
question.
the beginning to find all of that out, like, how long does it take someone then to start off?
Sure. That's a great question. Here's the solution for that. I did it in the morning because I'm just older and I wake up early, and why the heck not get it out of the
Okay.
way? And usually I like to play golf earlier in the morning. So that was my motivation. Here's a secret. I would have orders lined up all throughout Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right? And I had a friend of mine do all my pickups and deliveries on Fridays. I'm trying to dodge my wife's honeydew list, so hopefully she doesn't see this. So when I get out of the house, I'm just trying to get out of the house to dodge it, right? Because she starts the list in the morning. I could literally have done all of the deliveries and pickups all day Monday if I wanted to just
Yeah.
back them all into one day of the week. So somebody who's working a full-time job, and let's say they have a half a day off on Thursday afternoon, right? Or their Fridays are off or whatever. You can stack up all your pickups and deliveries on that one day of the week starting out of the gate. Meaning I do all my pickups and deliveries on Fridays, and it's a cycle. So, and then, I don't even have a truck. Well, you can rent a truck just on that Friday if you want, a flatbed from Penske or whatever, or Home Depot for next to $100 or whatever, 120, 150 bucks. But if I'm delivering 3 loads of 300 pallets, like we did earlier in the math, and I'm pulling in 2,800 bucks, if I got to pay 150 bucks out for the truck rental because I don't own a truck or a trailer, that's perfectly beautiful, right? And I've tailored my life to where I'm just having to execute on my work on that one day. And then you'll realize, wait a minute, I'm making more money in that one day than I am all week with my job.
Yeah, could be, for example, yeah.
And a lot of times, and plus I'm only doing it one day. What if I could do this 3 or 4 times a week, and really blow it up? So,
or buy that truck.
Or buy that truck themselves, right? And let the business buy it for you. So you have all these windows. I think of it as, how many 45-minute windows of opportunity do I have in a given week? I have a lot, because that's all it's really, if I really work this, that's all it's really going to take me, 45 minutes to an hour per load to get this done. And if I'm getting my overhead and my product for free or next to free, and I'm selling it, well, my overhead's low. So a lot of this is just all pure profit. And that's why I've loved it. I still giggle on the way doing these deliveries. It's like, I'm getting away with something.
Yeah. And still, after all of those decades, the pallets are mostly for free still today. Like, they just are happy to have more space, I guess, in their warehouses and stuff.
They want them gone. They don't want to have to come in and do it. Now, there's certain sizes, the 4840 standard. It used to be 90% of my business, but the pallet yards were after those. The scavengers are after them. So I would have to buy them for like $2, $1.50 a piece. It used to be 90% of my business. Now, since I've learned everything that I've learned, it's only 10% of my business, right? I've flipped the script where I don't have to rely myself on the same thing the pallet yards are after. So I'll get half of those for free, and the other half I'm paying about $1.50, $2 a piece, and selling them for $10, $12 a piece, 9, 10, 12, depending on what condition they're in. So it's still a great profit. And then 12-foot pallets, I'll pay $4 a piece because I'm going to get 30 for them, so I'm making a $26 profit per pallet. So on certain items I'll pay for, but all the large varieties and the mixed loads that I teach people how to do, not only am I getting them for free, but they're a lot of times paying me to take them away, and then I'm selling them as well.
And in regard to like all the different pallets that you just mentioned, specifically, if now the standard ones are 10%, then I guess there's also lots of variety in what you're selling today. Where do you think that market is going to in the future? Like, how have you seen the demands change in regard to what the warehouses want, what the sellers want? How has that been changing, and how do you think it's going to be in the future?
You would think that, like, during COVID, everything would have gotten smaller. It's gotten bigger. And also with Amazon, the way they operate, it's made everybody spoiled in a way because of the speed of delivery that Amazon operates under. So a normal business now they would operate out of New York, or back in the day would operate out like Orlando and New York would be their operation center. And everything's being shipped for those. But the lag time it took for them to actually operate wasn't as efficient as like an Amazon getting their stuff to them in a quick basis. So now they're copying that model. So now the Orlando location now has 7 warehouses scattered across Georgia, Alabama, the Panhandle, and Mississippi. So now anybody orders in that framework, they're able to get their product to them in lightning speed and keep that customer satisfied and satisfy that need that Amazon, kind of does when you order stuff from home, because people just gotten used to it. So every time they build all those little warehouses as a footprint, well, guess what? That means there's just more pallets involved to move the stuff around.
Yeah, that was just my thought as well. Yeah, so this is really, so it's becoming more local as well, I guess.
Right. And anytime there's warehouse and distribution and the movement of goods and the internet the way it is now, the speed and the amount of ordering that's taking place is massive. Even if it wasn't massive, right? I mean, my threshold for you to make a killer living is 3 accounts,
Okay. Well,
right?
yeah,
So
that's
you don't
not
have
that
to
much.
dominate the planet. You just need to get your 3 slices of the pie and dominate with those 3 accounts, and then not just the pallets, but the crates and the drums and the dunnage and all that. And that recycling amount of business is a lot of revenue for an individual who has low overhead to run this type of thing.
Yeah. And I guess also since it's becoming more and more decentralized, exactly with the example that you just
Mm-hmm.
gave, there are more and more warehouses closer and closer that you can then bring the pallets from one side to another.
Exactly. Yeah, it just creates
Mm-hmm.
more opportunity for us in
Yeah.
this business model. And
Yeah.
it's just the one thing that touches everything else. I guess remember the gold rush. So all the people they thought were making money, everybody think all the gold diggers were making the money, right? No, it's the guys who sold them the picks and the shovels to dig for the gold
Yeah.
who made the bank, who made the money. So the pallets are the picks and shovels of the economy or of commerce. If it's nobody pays attention to it, which I'm perfectly okay with.
That's a great analogy. But then also there's always a flip side to everything, right? So what
Mm-hmm.
would you say are the biggest struggles that you have faced? What is something that you could share that you would say, if I would have known that before, I would be happy to prevent it because the chances of, for example,
Sure.
running into it are pretty high.
Well, there's a lot of people in this industry that concentrate on larger businesses that, the Fortune 500 companies, they're going after the whale, right? Instead of
Mm-hmm.
3 average sized businesses and having different styles of opportunities in the pallet game, they're going after a big whale of a business. And the bigger the business is, the more they've constructed that business to operate under that standard pallet, that 4840 pallet, because
Yeah.
it fit on a semi if they're sending out full loads. They configured their packaging to fit all of it on a 4840 standard pallet. So their issues are, and my issue at one point, like, hey, if I just get this big company, I'll be dandy. But then the pressure level of having to deal with the pallet yards as well, going after that pallet, and the scavengers selling to pallet yards going after that pallet. And I would secure a supply, and it's just have somebody come in and undercut me or overpay, pay more than I was paying. So that's when I had to really develop the skill set of expanding to my other varieties. And it took a while to figure out how to switch my existing customers to other items, to my other styles of pallets, and find the other customers that needed varieties or different sizes and styles. And it's this huge amount of businesses. But it required me to really know the pallet game in a way to where I could influence them to show that my solution's better than what they've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them just never had been exposed. So if I had to redo it again, I would not have concentrated on that standard 4840 in the early years of the business and switched it up.
And also then I guess not the whales, but the small fishes that still need those pallets and also want to get rid of it because they don't have the time, I guess, also then, and the manpower probably to manage it.
And one other item, like if you have a customer that needs 1,000 pallets a week, well, I don't want to have a warehouse, right? And with 1,000 or 1,200 or 1,500 pallets a week, I'm having to stockpile that. Now I need a warehouse of storage or something like that. Well, no. Okay, what's the solution to that? Well, I could broker these. I could just be the middleman. Am I going to make as much profit? No, but I'm not going to have any lower overhead, and I'm not going to have to get out of the bed to actually move them, and I'll make a cut of the action. And how many of those can I layer on top of each other? And I'm not restricted by area. I can go in Alabama and Georgia, California, and work a brokering deal in those aspects anywhere in the country and layer those revenue streams on top of the point A to point B. So that's another whole layer of simplification is where I wanted to simplify my life. In fact, I keep this in front of me at all times.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Right?
That's
So,
amazing. Yeah.
yeah.
Like the
Simplify.
Post-it that people put on their screens, but you just have it in XXL.
Exactly. So that's what's
Amazing.
been my whole goal in this whole operation. So I can spend more time with my family. I can have money freedom, time freedom. Now I teach people now, as well. So that's another responsibility that I have. But there's a great joy in being able to help people out that have been stuck in some, getting paid by the hour type situations and and not being able to spend time with their family or grandkids and are worn out, to be able to help them get out of that situation has been very gratifying as well.
Fantastic. And what has been your biggest learning within those 25 years?
I just said it. Wake up every
Simplify.
day and simplify the process. Keep on trying to solve problems on it, that arise on any given day in a way where I never have to solve them again. Permanent solutions, and start stacking those on top of each other to where in the end your life is simplified.
Fantastic. Wow. I love this. I think this is exactly the perfect point to close it up. There is a tradition that I started on this podcast where the previous guest on the show is posing a question to the following one, not knowing who it is.
Oh, really?
And so the question that was left for you is, what made you gravitate towards that particular side hustle? What and why?
Well, we kind of covered it a little bit, but when I saw the fact that this was as big as it was, invisible as it was, and low overhead as it was, and tangible in a necessity business where I was getting my product for free, I could not ignore that, and I was going to do everything in my power to make it work and figure it out in a way. Is it glamorous? No. Is my time freedom glamorous and my money freedom glamorous? Yes.
Simple. It's simple and boring to people, which will keep many away and enable you to live that life that you want to live. So that's fantastic.
Perfect. Yeah.
And then, the question to you, what is the question that you are giving to the next interviewee?
Well, I'm always looking for the new best book that somebody's reading that's impacted their lives. And you probably had somebody ask this, but what's the book that they have read that impacted their life more than any other? So I'll listen to it the next time so I can go get it myself. That's what the reason I'm asking.
I'll message you that answer so that you can buy it and read it as well. Fantastic. I love that.
Fantastic. Beautiful.
Awesome.
Hey, I enjoyed it so much. I'm glad we got to chat.
Yeah, me too. This was a really, really insightful conversation. So thank you so much for your time. I think everyone can take something away, no matter if they want to start that pallet business or not, and definitely see what's possible with side hustles today. So thank you.
The simplestbiz.com if they want to check out.
Yeah, I will link all of those things in the show and your course as well. And I know you also have a newsletter that's very active. So I will link to all of those things so that anyone who is interested now after this fantastic conversation in starting a pallet business can check it all out.
Beautiful. Y'all have fun.
Fantastic.
And thank you much, Fran.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much too. Bye-bye.
Beautiful. Bye-bye. Are we still...